Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Podcast, the first guest of the day, ESPN Sports Center host. He loves his hockey, and that's John Buccigross. How are you doing on this afternoon?
Doing great, thank you.
Alrighty. I did not look at the ESPN experts' predictions yet, so I'm very curious to see who you have in all the divisions and all your awards. Let's start with the divisions. We'll start in the East. We'll go to what I think is the better of the two Eastern Conference divisions, although you can make a case it's the other one. I think the Metro is the better of the two divisions. Who's your pick to come out of the Metro division this year?
I believe I went with the Washington Capitals.
Yep.
They're pretty happy with their team. I think they're better than they were last year at this time. I think they expect a big year out of Tom Wilson. They got a couple guys who can fight, so hopefully he can fight less and protect his hands and be on the ice more and play more power play time. So he could have a big year for them. And this kind of could be, they have such salary cap concerns going forward. In some ways, this is perhaps a little bit of a last hurrah. Holtby will be gone after this year. He's a free agent. So it's going to be maybe that will help them. And the big question is their coach, and can he get them going after last year? And so, there'll be a little bit of an onus on him, and how hard will he be on the superstars, especially the young guys like Kuznetsov. Sometimes you got to ride those guys a little hard, and maybe he didn't do that enough last year. So it'll be an interesting year for the Capitals, but they're still, they still got a great team. Certainly other teams in the division are coming, and they'll need to stay healthy and get off to a good start, but I believe I went with the Capitals.
I took the Capitals as well to win that division. I think that division's going to be more open than it's been. I think it's going to be close. I think the Flyers are a team that can surprise this year. What's your take on the Flyers this year?
Maybe. I wasn't a big fan of the coach they hired, like Vigneault. Obviously, they got the young goalie in net that it looks like the real deal in Carter Hart, and they certainly have a good mix of people up front. The defense core has been something they've been working on, trying to get that more solid, trying to build the team from the goalie out. He's the strength of their team. And so, they're still, I still think they're a bit of a, obviously a true wild card team in the sense, can they get off to a good start? Can they stay healthy? Can they get some traction? And because it's tough, you got to get those, mid-90 points to make the playoffs. And there's a lot of competition. The league is obviously very even because of the hard salary cap and because so many teams are run well and draft and develop pretty well that it's very even. So there's not a big difference for many teams, and the Flyers are one of those teams that are kind of in that mix.
Yes, I think they're in that mix. You mentioned Alain Vigneault. I heard mixed reviews on that hire, and his former team that he previously coached was the New York Rangers. I think that's another team that could surprise this year as well. What do you make of the Rangers and their improved team this year?
Yeah, certainly anytime you add Panarin, you're going to improve. He's one of the best players in the league. They still have a lot of holes. They're still young. They're still trying to change things up. The goaltending situation might become a bit of a thing because Lundqvist is older. I don't know if they're ready to be a playoff team yet. They're still kind of building towards that. And so I think, again, the big key is getting off to a hot start. If you get buried early, you can't come from behind because the math doesn't quite add up with 3-point games, and also because everybody's, like I said, pretty even. So getting off to a good start for a team like the Rangers is absolutely a necessity.
Yeah, and another team that I think is under some pressure to have a good year this year because their best player is a free agent after the end of the year, and that's the New Jersey Devils. I think they're an improved team as well. What do you make of the Devils?
Yeah, they keep building their organization slowly but surely. Goaltending is obviously the big issue for them. They haven't had it the last couple of years, and you got to have a goaltender. You got to have a good goaltender. Got to have a hot goaltender who can get hot through different parts of the season, steal some wins, carry you through winning streaks that can help give you those playoff points buffer that you need. You win those 7 in a row, 9 out of 10, really get hot, and you need a goalie to do that. So their big question is a hot goaltender, a true number one who plays like it, because certainly they're slowly building their roster. Obviously with the addition of Jack Hughes, he's the real deal. And that's a good, solid organization who, again, just needs really good goaltending.
Yeah, they do need good goaltending. That's why I think there's a chance they don't make the playoffs at all. I'm worried about their goaltending situation. Another team whose goaltending situation I'm worried about is the Islanders. I feel like they downgraded from Leonard to Varlamov. What do you make of the Islanders offseason and chances they return to the postseason?
I think they got a good chance to make the playoffs. I picked them to make the playoffs. You play goalie for Barry Trotz, you're immediately better. Very responsible team in front. It's the best type of team to play goalie for. You just got to make the basic saves. You shouldn't get peppered. You shouldn't get on-man rushes. They're very well structured. He's obviously a very successful defensive coach going back to Nashville. So he's used to this type of environment, a team that's not expected perhaps to make the cup. A goalie change, but again, when goalies play better for Barry Trotz, their numbers go up. And so the question will be they be where they were last year? That's going to be the question. But again, this is a team who made the playoffs last year. They swept the Penguins, and they're a team that could get even better in terms of someone like Barzal who could make a step up. So I'm still bullish on the Islanders.
Yeah, I like their forwards. I like Barzal and Lee. It was key that they brought back Anders Lee. He's now their captain. You mentioned the Penguins. I feel like that's a team that's window is closing. Although Crosby and Malkin are still around, Matt Murray. I just feel like that team's getting older. Wouldn't you say they're getting older?
In some spots, but they added Galchenyuk this year, which was a good addition. He could get 30 goals playing with Malkin. Gensel is still young. He's a very key player on this team. I think Brandon Tanev was a really good sign by them. I know some people felt they overpaid and gave him a bunch of years, but he's got that Chris Kunitz factor that they really lost. Someone who could just hit and be intense and a great skater, really fast. And so he's actually a good addition, I think, for them as they try to get some grindiness back. And they're kind of stuck in between the team. Are they going to be really defensive or really offensive? And obviously Malkin and Crosby have slowed down a little bit, being in their 30s now. But to me, they really got to figure out how to build their team from the net out, play more defensive, play more structured, and try to win that way. Because they're not going to overpower teams anymore. So is the defense good enough? And obviously it hasn't been a good Stanley Cup defense. And so they need to get back to that. They trade Ole Mata, whose game did seem to deteriorate in Pittsburgh. I'm not sure why he got worse, but he did, even though he was a young player. So, there's still some questions there for sure, but I still think Malkin and Crosby are young enough to certainly make the playoffs.
Yeah, I have them third in the Metro. I think that another team that I penciled in for a wild card, I think Carolina returns to the postseason this year. How do you like the Panthers, the Hurricanes this year?
Justin Williams starts the season out, and he certainly gave them a lot of juice. They built up a lot of momentum with their whole thing last year that they had, and the jerks and the whole thing. That was a good energizer to last the whole season. They won't have that this year. They got to start from scratch. Their goalies are always kind of inconsistent, up and down. That's what kind of scares me for them. So I actually have them taking a step back this year. Certainly got a lot of really good players, and they'll be right on the bubble for a playoff team. And they certainly could make it if things go well and they get goaltending and they stay healthy. So not a surprise if they make the playoffs, but I think I had them. You can only pick 8. You can't pick everybody. And so they were one team that I left out.
Yeah, I had them in because I really like Sebastian Aho. He's great. I'm concerned with their goaltending. Absolutely. That's why I almost put somebody else, and I almost put in, I think it was Jersey or the Islanders in that spot. But I went with Carolina because of their offense, and I like their defense too. And I think that they could get it done again. I'm not going to doubt the Hurricanes. Another team in the Metro that we haven't talked about is Columbus. There's people that I think they're going to take a step back. What do you think about Columbus?
Yeah, they still got a lot of good players. Obviously, losing Panarin's huge. He's a superstar. But again, they're a young team where people are getting better. They have really good defense with Seth Jones, one of the best in the league, and Zach Werenski. And so they have a pretty good D-core. Up front, Cam Atkinson's still a really good player. Certainly they're going to rely on some young players to try to step in and fill Panarin's production. but they have some stability with the GM and the coach, and they have a good core of veterans that keep the room. It'll be a good room. So if they're good enough, they'll make the playoffs. It's just a matter of will they be good enough? Because I think all the other stuff, they'll be pushed hard. The veterans will keep the guys going. There's a good energy there. So they're another team on the bubble there, with Carolina, and right in that 89 to 96 point area. Could go either way. And I did have them just short this year, but I would not be surprised, just like Carolina, if they made it.
So you don't have Columbus neither? Yeah, neither do I. I just think they'll miss Panarin and Bobrovsky. Although I love Seth Jones, and I think he's a Norris candidate, and I think that Pierre-Luc Dubois, somebody can make a step forward for them. Let's switch over to the Atlantic Division. Who is your pick to come out of that division?
I think Toronto is ready to make a move. They have some really good young players. They're starting to build their team, starting to fill it out. The goalie was good last year. So overall, I think it's going to be Toronto's time to step forward and have a big regular season.
Yeah, I like Toronto too. I'm high on them. I think that they can go on a deep playoff run. But I'm going to go with Tampa to win the division. I think it's close though, but I'm going to take Tampa. That's a regular season juggernaut with Kucherov and Point and Stamkos and Vasilevsky. As much as I love what Toronto did this summer, I think that's probably a very close race, and I'm going to say Tampa edges them out for the regular season. And then Boston's obviously a playoff team there as well. What's your take on the Panthers? Do you think they're back in the postseason with Quenneville at the helm?
Yeah, I took them as a playoff team. I take them a lot. I always like that team. They always seem to disappoint me, but they've never really had a goalie before. So we'll see if Sergei Bobrovsky can play well. There's years he plays well and years he doesn't. But certainly that was their problem before, is a lack of goaltending. They have a good organization. They've been building for a while. They have a lot of good forwards. Now they have a very good coach, Joe Quenneville. So I think overall this team is in the best position it has been to, again, led by Barkov, make the playoffs.
Yeah, I think they're a bubble team. I won't be surprised if they make it, but at the same time, I won't be surprised if they fall short. A team that I think has a chance to surprise depending on how their goaltending shakes up and if their goaltending's good enough, Buffalo. I really am a fan of Jack Eichel and Rasmus Dahlin. I think those are really good players to build around for an organization. What's your take on the Sabres?
Yeah, I have them as my 8th playoff team getting in. New coach, Ralph Kruger, is really good. I think he'll give them a lot of structure. You mentioned Eichel and those guys, and Dahlin are going to be better than they were last year. When you have young players and you expect them to get better, will they have good enough goaltending? That's the big question. Jeff Skinner needs to produce again. Guys they had in the American League, they're calling up, need to produce. So this is a big year. They're going to have to make the playoffs, or they're going to fire the GM. And so this is the year for them. I think there's a lot of desperation around the organization and a lot of focus, and I think the time is now for the Sabres to get off to that hot start and led by Eichel and to make a move and make the playoffs.
Yeah, that's a team that would be pretty exciting to make the playoffs. They haven't made it in so long. I feel like the last time they made it was 2011, if I'm not mistaken. Eichel was probably like a teenager back then, like 13 years old. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Jack Eichel and Rasmus Dahlin. I think that could be a surprise team, although I have them on the bubble. A team that came close to making the playoffs last year, the Montreal Canadiens. I think they take a step back. What do you make about the Canadiens?
Yeah, certainly. They'll be right there. I have them just outside the bubble, but again, a team who's has some really good young players but it's tough for young players. You don't know when they're going to improve, when they're going to make that leap. But yeah, they're a team that is right there. But I agree. I have them just outside the playoffs. Everyone can't make it. Although, like I said, there's so many teams that can because the league is so close. But I do have them just outside.
Yeah, I have them just outside too. And Carey Price is getting older. It's kind of like the Rangers in the sense of Lundqvist and Price. Their goalies are getting older, but like they're, especially in the Rangers case, they're like position player course getting younger. Canadians are getting a little younger too with Kotkaniemi and then Suzuki. I'm not sure about the Canadians this year, although I do like Shea Weber too. That he's a very good player and he's panned out well for them after they got him for a PK Subban. Obviously, the two worst teams in that division, well, in my opinion, are Detroit and Ottawa. I think those are obviously the worst two teams, perhaps in the Eastern Conference. Do you think any of those two have a chance to surprise anybody, or do you think that they're going to be two teams that obviously have to trade people away at the deadline and load up for the lottery again?
Yeah, obviously Ottawa's going to have a major rebuild again. They probably wouldn't mind finishing last again to get a real good draft pick. Yeah, Detroit's but Detroit won't be terrible. They'll likely be right around in a low 80-point team. But you never know. Things could click. You get hot, and you never know. You get some momentum. But yeah, for the most part, Detroit, Ottawa, Rangers, and Detroit, I would probably have near the bottom of the conference. But there won't be a big gap between maybe Ottawa, but after that, I don't think there'll be a big point gap for the rest of it'll be little increments as we work our way up to playoff teams.
Yeah, I think Ottawa's clearly the worst in the East, and then I think Detroit's the second worst. Third worst, I think it's going to be close between like Columbus. I'm not as high on Columbus as others. Montreal, Islanders. It could be anybody, really. I just think that the best of the East is obviously Washington and Tampa, Boston, and Toronto. Bottom is Detroit and Ottawa, and then like everybody else is in the middle. That's just me and how I see the East this year. Let's move over to the West. Who do you have coming out of the Central Division, which I think is the most top-heavy division in the league?
Yeah, it's going to be tough to figure out who's going to have that. I think they'll all be pretty close. I got Colorado, but certainly it could be St. Louis or Nashville as well. Those all three of those teams should be very good, stout, good core players, some stability, some new blood. Kadri with Colorado and Duchesne with Nashville, and St. Louis adds Justin Falk from Carolina. That was a nice little pickup for them to get a right-handed shot offensive defenseman that can really energize them. So, yeah, the Central's pretty packed with the big three right there.
Yeah, I love the Central this year. I think all three of those, St. Louis, Nashville, Colorado, can finish with over 100 points. I took the Avs to win that division. What surprised me, John? I went on DraftKings the other day just to look at the division odds. Colorado was plus 450, and Dallas, I believe, was the favorite. That was a head-scratcher to me, and Colorado was the fourth choice. I know people love the Blues because they won last year. Nashville still has some good players on their team. But I just think that Colorado is very undervalued, and I bet them to win that division. I picked them to win that division, too, because I absolutely love their top three of McKinnon and Rantanen and Landeskog on their offense, and then Makar on their defense with Girard. And Gaubauer I like, but I'm not so sure if he's elite per se. Colorado, I think, has a chance to win the Cup, and I obviously think that's the best division in the league. What's your take on the Avs?
Yeah, I like them a lot, and Vegas likes them a lot too. The Lightning are favored at 8-1, then the Golden Knights 9-1, but then the Avalanche are right there at 10-1 with Toronto and Boston. So obviously, Vegas likes them. The public will start to like them, and they certainly have that team that could make a run. Again, will they have the goaltending to win all those playoff series in the spring? That'll be the question. But yeah, they are an absolute Ferrari, and they are loaded with skaters. And if it all works and it all comes together, then they're going to be a very dangerous team. It'll be fun to watch in the playoffs. And so, yeah, I think a lot of people have their eyes on Colorado this year as a team that certainly could come out of the West. The West is, pretty open, mainly that division, like you said, but Vegas is also very good. Calgary didn't have the goaltending. They might still not have it. We might keep an eye on them to have maybe a mid-season trade, but certainly the Avalanche are ready to arrive.
Yeah, I agree with you about the Avs. How about the Blues? Obviously, they won the Cup a year ago. I think they're back in the mix as well. Great all-around team there. Jordan Binnington, I'm a little bit on the fence. Can he do it again? I think he has a chance to do it again because the Blues defense is very good, and that certainly works in his favor. What's your take on the Blues this year?
Yeah, I don't think they'll repeat. I think, they'll most likely make the playoffs, and then anything can happen. But, everything went well for them just perfectly last year, and then just the emotion that you can ride a hockey season toward the end. And I just don't know if they're going to be able to repeat that. Everything went right for them. and still a good team. But again, they were in last place as of January, so
Yeah.
there's got to be some of that in that team, whatever it was, lack of whatever. So the Blues still should be solid. But it wouldn't surprise me if they didn't make the playoffs, if they got some injuries, if the goalie got hurt or he got cold, and suddenly they finish with 92 points and they'll make the playoffs. I mean, that could happen. Literally, that could happen in just about any team out there. So yeah, I don't think they'll repeat, but still should be very, very good.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think they're repeating either. I have them second in that division. The team I picked third in that division is the Nashville Predators. What's your take on them this year as they made some changes? Obviously, Matt Duchene in, PK Subban out, Dante Fabro in, and some other key changes in Nashville. What's your take on the Preds?
Yeah, they're really good. Yeah, well coached. They have stability there. They add someone like Duchene to give them more pop up front from the center ice position, which they've been looking for a while. Give them a little more depth up there to go with their great defense and good structure. And as long as the goalies stay hot and warm and Rene can still play well, yeah, they're a real solid team. Again, maybe this will be their Stanley Cup year. Certainly, they're always in that conversation. They have lots of good players. And so Nashville will be good again.
Yeah, I do expect them to be good again. Two other teams I think will be good again, but I'm not sure if they'll be as good as a year ago. Maybe Dallas will be better, but I'm not so sure about the Winnipeg Jets. I think the Jets are a bubble team. What's your take on both Dallas and Winnipeg? I have them as my wild card teams in the West.
Yeah, they'll probably run around that bubble for sure. With things going, kind of different. There's a little adversity in that organization and stuff going on. So, hey, they could click it, just take off and ride Line A's coattails as a great elite scorer that he is. He can carry teams with his goal scoring. That could happen. So they're certainly, right in that bubble for sure. Anywhere, again, from 90 to 100 points, depending on injuries and momentum and all that stuff. So that's the fine line. So, yeah, they were kind of darling for a couple of years, but now people are kind of cold on them. So we'll see. Maybe they'll have a better year because of that. But yeah, I would have them. I have them just out of the playoffs because again, you can't pick everybody. But still a very a good team with some good pros.
Yeah, and then Dallas obviously added Joe Pavelski. How weird is that Joe Pavelski's no longer with the Sharks and going to be in a Stars uniform? That to me is so strange, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. But it's happened before to the best of them. Wayne Gretzky, Bobby Orr, they played for different people too, and it happens. And he's a good addition for them. It's a very good team. They have a lot of winners. The coach is a winner. They get some up and coming players that they drafted as well who can skate. So and Ben Bishop had a good year last year. So if they get good goaltending, it'll be tough. I mean, it's a tough division to win in, and so it will be difficult. But again, they'll be part of that bubble, that very good bubble. But I have them making the playoffs, and I think they're a team that's kind of slowly on the rise, and they're going to keep that going this year.
Yeah, I definitely think Dallas is back in the postseason. Winnipeg I have as my second wildcard team, but I don't feel so good about it. Chicago and Minnesota I have as the bottom two in that division. Chicago still has all those championship veterans on their team, although they're starting to get a little bit younger. And obviously Minnesota's a team that's in a bit of a transition with the new GM. What do you make of those two squads?
Yeah, Minnesota's certainly transitioning, trying to start over after the one-and-done GM, which always kind of makes things feel a little bit weird. But, yeah, I don't know if they quite have the traction to get back in the mix. Don't have to get off to a really hot start and have some career years for people. But I had the Blackhawks actually making the playoffs. I have them back in the top 8. They were really good after the coaching change last year. Eventually, once the new coach got his system in, they played very well down the stretch. They went with some young guys. They should be better. If they can get the goaltending, play a little tighter, and have some of that veteran pride. They still have Taves, still have Kane. It's a bit of a stretch, but I'm going to say the Blackhawks are going to kind of figure it out here and be a good regular season team and get back in the playoffs.
Wow, that's a surprise pick. I guess that's your surprise team this year. But yeah, that won't stun me if Chicago gets him. I just think the West, and especially their division, is pretty top heavy. So that's why I kept the Blackhawks out. Let's switch over to the Pacific Division. I think we have the same division choice winner here.
Yeah, certainly. That's Calgary and Vegas are the cream of that crop, and they'll both be in the playoffs for sure. They should be 1-2 in the division. Could go either way. San Jose will still be good. Obviously, losing Pavelski hurts, but they have some real horses up front. Really good young players. Timo Meyer and Hurdle. They're really good. So the goaltending wasn't good last year, and that could be a disaster this year if they don't make it. But I want to say that the top three there will be your playoff teams, and the wild cards will come from the Central.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have Vegas first, and then I think I took San Jose ahead of Calgary only because I just think that the Sharks, a couple young guys on the Sharks will improve. Calgary would be good. I'm just not sold on Riddish really, so that's probably why I put them third. Although I think Riddish will be fine, better than Mike Smith, but I'm not so sure if he's going to be anything special. So I took Calgary third and San Jose second, with obviously the Golden Knights winning that division. A couple teams I think are interesting this year are Vancouver, Edmonton, and Arizona. I've seen some projections pick those teams to make the postseason. What do you make of those three teams?
Yeah, Arizona's certainly coming. Some people have them in, and they could become a bubble team this year. They got Phil Kessel, and they got some other guys, and Rick Tocchet, the coach. They have some stability. So, will they have the goaltending? Can they get 95 points? That's a big question. So, but some people like their chances in that regard. Obviously, Edmonton's still in a rebuild year. Connor McDavid is the best player, so you can never discount the team with the best player. He could single-handedly carry them to a playoff berth, but that's unlikely with their goaltending and the holes that they have. So I wouldn't expect much for them. And Anaheim's kind of in a rebuild, a reboot. They got the coach, and they have some veteran pride, but overall, unless they got a great goalie in John Gibson. So if for some reason they get some pretty good structure with the new coach, and they get some guys who get hot early scoring goals with that goaltender, again, they get off to an 8-2 start. Maybe they can manage their way the rest of the way. So the first 10 games for every team is really important. And some teams will bury themselves early. Some teams can survive from a 4-6, 5-5 start. Some of the elite, but so a team like Anaheim would have to get off to an unexpected, really good start.
Yeah, I'm not high on Anaheim at all. Their team, I think, is headed for a possible rebuild. The Kings, to me, have a major rebuild ahead. I won't be surprised if Jonathan Quick's moved at the deadline. What's your take on LA? I think they're going to be a long ways away.
Yeah, I think they will trade Quick. Maybe a team like Calgary and other teams have goalie issues, might be looking at him, and I think they're looking to move him. Maybe get back in that big draft pick again next year, and kind of redo it again maybe next year. See what they can do in terms of free agency and getting their cap down so they can draft and sign a couple guys that can sometimes make a jump. If you can draft a really good 18, 19-year-old and add a guy kind of like New Jersey did, getting Subban, and also drafting Jack Hughes, kind of a double whammy there if you have the cap room to do that. New Jersey did. That's why they were able to make the trade. Nashville was trying to trade Subban so they could sign Duchesne, and luckily for them, the Devils had the space. So that's what I think LA will kind of look at that model like New Jersey's done here, is slowly build, make a good trade when they got Taylor Hall, and then another one with Subban, and you draft Jack Hughes. So I imagine that's what the Kings are thinking about.
Yeah, I don't see an avenue for them, especially this year. I think they're going to be a trade deadline sell team. Who's your Stanley Cup pick?
I had an all-Canada Stanley Cup pick about Toronto and Calgary. And obviously Calgary needs to get that goalie, but overall they have a really fun, exciting team, and up front especially. And so I just went with a Calgary-Toronto, and Toronto has all those young players, and it's a young players league, and if those guys get hot and really get going, they can really run a league. And most championships are won by teams with really good young players. And so I went with an all-Canada final.
Interesting. I went Colorado over Toronto. It's funny, I didn't even pick Toronto to win their own division, but I have them in the Stanley Cup final. I just like all the moves that they made. It'd be funny if it was Colorado-Toronto, because those two teams made a trade in the offseason, the Kadri and Tyson Berry trade. I think that's hilarious that I had that as my finals pick, and I'm like, oh, those two teams made a trade this offseason. So I thought that was very funny. Let's switch over to the awards very quick and some other miscellaneous things. Hart Trophy.
I think I had. What did I pick in the Hart Trophy? I'm not sure. I think I might have gone Mitch Marner, but I'm not. I don't think I went Connor McDavid. I had him scoring title. I think I might have gone. Mitch Marner.
Wow, that's a dark horse
but
pick.
I'm not sure. You'll have to check the website.
Yeah, I'll check the expert picks. I know LaGreca took Connor McDavid. He said that on his podcast the other day. So he said that.
Certainly could happen.
And it's funny because he also said on his podcast that a ton of people took McKinnon, and that's who my pick is. So I'm like, oh great, now my pick is everybody else's pick because I'm high on Colorado and everybody else is high on Colorado. So maybe somebody else wins it. Who knows? Maybe Mitch Marner could.
Actually, I think I did take Nathan McKinnon for the MVP. I think that's who I took.
Oh, wow. So we have the same MVP pick. That's interesting. I'll double check the website. I haven't looked at it yet, but I know LaGreca said some things on his podcast that who the consensus people were for some of the awards. If Marner won it, that would be kind of like Kucherov because nobody expected Kucherov to win the Hart last year. And a lot of people thought if anybody from Tampa won the Hart, it'd be Stamkos, but it ended up being Kucherov. So that it would be like that a little bit if that was the case with Mitch Marner. How about the Vezina Trophy?
Vezina, I'm trying to think. I took Freddie Anderson, actually. I think I kind of wrote that on my Toronto pick, that obviously for them to have a great year and win the division, they're going to have to get really good goaltending. He was good last year. He was in the Vezina hunt. So I went with Freddie Anderson. Freddie
Anderson's not a bad pick. I think that award's open. It's me, him, Vasilevsky. Hope being a contract year should be interesting. I like guys in contract years when they perform well, and it tends to work in their favor because then they get heavily paid. You see that in every sport. How about the Norris Trophy?
I actually went Cale Makar to pull the double, Rookie of the Year and Norris for the Colorado Avalanche defense.
I like it. I like that call, the double whammy with Cale Makar. I thought about taking Cale Makar for the Norris, but I didn't have the balls to do it. I took, who did I take? Did I take Victor Hedman? Yeah, I took Victor Hedman. That feels like a safe pick for me. The Jack Adams.
Coach of the Year, I think, you think I would have taken Ralph Kruger for the Sabres to win the Stanley Cup. But I can't quite recall who I picked. Of course, if Toronto won, they might give it to Babcock again. So, I really can't. I'm sorry. I picked, and as I talk out loud, I picked Jared Bednar of the Avalanche.
Did I pick
Avalanche
him too?
Heavy Awards show.
Did I pick him too? No, I did not. I picked. I actually think Philly's gonna surprise people this year. I think I took AV, and it's funny because I'm a Rangers fan. Obviously, it'd be weird picking my favorite team's old coach to be the coach of the year. I just am high on Carter Hart and that offense. I feel like Philly's like an every other year team. They let me down last year, and then maybe this is a year where they surprise people. So I'm going to say it's Alain Vigneault. I don't feel great about it. I think there's a lot of teams that can surprise, especially in the East. The Calder Trophy, I think this is a 3-horse race.
Could be. It's going to be. Really, so many people can win that award every year. I always say that.
Yeah, I know you took Makar, actually. You said that before you said the double whammy. So, I took Capo Caco because I just think he has a lot around him. Panarin. I think Capo Caco is going to eventually be playing on the top line with Zibanejad and Panarin. And then I think that Panarin obviously is a superstar, and I think Capo Caco is going to benefit from that. Jack Hughes will make it interesting, absolutely. I think that it's going to be those two and Cale Makar up for that award. Wouldn't sleep on Cody Glass either as like a dark horse from Vegas. I like him a lot. Yeah. He's a good player. And then there's somebody else I thought about. Oh, Quinn Hughes of Vancouver, somebody that I like.
Right. Yeah.
As a rookie. There's a couple good rookies this year. The Art Ross Trophy, we agree. Connor McDavid. You said that you had McDavid for the Art Ross. I'm right there with you for that. How about the Rocket Richard, the goal scorer leader?
Yeah, I haven't really thought about that one. It could be a number of people. I'd probably go Austin Matthews if I had to pick a guy this year. Maybe I'd go with him scoring.
Interesting.
Maybe 54 or so.
That's not a bad pick. I'm going to keep going with Ovechkin. I pick Ovechkin every year for the Rocket Richard. He tends to get 50 every year, so I'm going to go with Ovechkin. That's always like my guy for the Rocket Richard. I just pencil him in for that every single season. A couple miscellaneous things before we go. Your surprise team, you said the Chicago Blackhawks was your surprise playoff team, right?
Yep, that would be my and Buffalo.
Oh, Buffalo too, yeah.
I went with one Cinderella story in each conference, so those are my two.
Yeah, I went with two in the East. I took Philadelphia, and I took my Rangers. The Ranger pick sounds like a homer pick. You're more down on them than me, but I just like their improved defense with Trouba and Adam Fox. I think it could be good for them. And I think it'll be close between them, Florida, and the Devils. I don't think the Islanders are going to be as great because I think they're going to regret the Robin Leonard thing. But I could be wrong about the Islanders. But I don't feel good about it, so I'm going to go with Flyers and Rangers as my surprise teams that sneak in the playoffs. How about a disappointment team?
With everything that's gone on with Winnipeg, certainly if they were not to make the playoffs after kind of being a cup contender, that'd be kind of a quick fall. So certainly that would be a bummer. I think I look at teams not making the playoffs. That would be the biggest one for me. Yeah,
Winnipeg I have as my disappointment team, although I have them in the playoffs, but as their second wild card, going from a cup contender to the second wild card to me is a pretty significant drop-off, so I'm with you on that one. Who is somebody that you think that is in college hockey right now that could potentially be playing in the playoffs in 2020 like Cale Makar did last year? Because I know you follow college hockey pretty well. Who could be this year's Cale Makar?
Well, there won't be a Cale Makar this year. There won't be anybody who does that. So we'll see what happens. It's kind of a brand new year, and no one really sticks out like that in terms of a person you knew that was good. Even him this time last year, we didn't know he was going to make that kind of a jump in his sophomore year. He was a pretty good player his freshman year, but nothing like the dominating player he became this year. So that's the great mystery of college sports. Guys can make big leaps like he did and go from really an average freshman year to a guy who, this time last year before the season started, no one could envision he'd be a playoff impact player in 9 months. So we could have someone like that who makes a big jump, but no one really stands out as a high single-digit first-round draft pick who's then going to play in the spring. So that's not going to quite. Certainly, Wisconsin is loaded with some really good players, and they're going to be fun to watch. I hope we broadcast a couple of their regular season games on ESPNU this year, so people can take a look at them. They have some first-round draft picks, and they have some players who are going to be first-round draft picks in next draft who are draft eligible and are going to play college hockey this year. So it's going to be exciting to find out who those players are and to really see who's going to become the big impact players. And so in that team in Wisconsin is a team that I think could really have some players who are going to be, Cole Caulfield comes to mind, the Montreal Canadian first-round pick. They say he shoots it like Ovechkin is a little guy, a little 5'6" guy, and obviously GMs are afraid to take those guys too high. The Canadians did take him in the first round, and he has a chance to lead college hockey in goals this year. So Cole Caulfield of the Wisconsin Badgers is a name to look at. Could be a one-and-done guy, could be on the Canadians next year. I don't think he'll turn pro this spring, but if he goes out and scores 40 goals, then he will be on the Canadians in April, whether they're in the playoffs or whether he's going to play in a couple of regular season games. If his team doesn't make the Frozen Four and they're out early, then those players can show up at the end of the regular season. Makar, of course, his team went to the final last year, the college hockey championship game, so he wasn't able to play that until the playoffs. So Wisconsin and Cole Caulfield's the name to remember.
Okay, yeah, Cole Caulfield. I remember when he was drafted, and there's a couple examples through the years other than Makar. I remember McAvoy from the Bruins and Kreider from the Rangers are the ones that stood out to me the past few years, the guys that showed up for the playoffs and had impacts. Last thing regarding hockey, best player traded this year.
Well, I don't know about best player, but certainly the biggest name. You mentioned Jonathan Quick. That's certainly a Stanley Cup champion, a Conn Smythe winner, probably a future Hall of Famer. it's a pretty good chance, like you said, he could be dealt, and they could get cap space and perhaps get some stuff in return, a number one draft pick from a good team, which would be a late first rounder, maybe a little prospect, a hole in Bayfield they need, whether it's a bottom six forward even, that can certainly help a team build a roster. So I'd be interested to see if Jonathan Quick is that guy who's on the move.
Yeah, I should have worded it the biggest name trader rather than best player. I had best player written down, but yeah, biggest name would certainly be Jonathan Quick for sure. So are you going to be on SportsCenter tonight after the wild card game?
Yeah, well, I'll be there. I'll be on the next 3 nights. So first night of hockey, baseball, and so it'll be a fun night to do SportsCenter.
Yeah, you and Barry Melrose probably this week, right?
I hope so. I don't know if he's in. You'd think he'd be in on opening night, but I don't know for sure. So I'll find out with everybody when I go into work here in a couple minutes.
Yeah, I won't be surprised if I see Barry Melrose on there. And normally you have the segment with Van Pelt. Are you going to be doing those Van Pelt segments again?
Hopefully. I like when they have me. Obviously, in the fall, it's heavy football, so they don't give us much of a shot. But after the Super Bowl and the college football championship game are over, then it kind of opens up, and then we'll hopefully talk more hockey.
Yeah, but sometimes I could see you guys pop in October, like the first week of the season, every once in a while on the Van Pelt Sports Center, you or Barry, or even Steve Levy, or Linda Cohn, somebody like that.
Tuesday or Wednesday. Those are the 2 open days for college football. Obviously we have Monday Night Football on Monday. We have Thursday NFL and Thursday college football. So yeah, Tuesday and Wednesday, a quiet night. You might see us. Yeah,
those are the nights I normally would be you guys. Yeah, it would normally be like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. All right, it was fun to have you on again today. I'll certainly have you on again another time, maybe mid-season, maybe before that. Who knows? And I'll have fun playing Bucci overtime all season. I hope you have a good day, John.
You too. Thank you.